Hey guys, how is everybody doing? About a weekish now, I think it's been, or maybe hasn't even been a week. Um, I made a video talking about where I had been and talking about what I had been doing for a while. And in that video, I talked about why I had not been doing movie reviews because my movie theater closed. And go watch it for further explanation. I'll leave something at the end of the video for you to go and watch it, or maybe I'll leave a little suggestion up here somewhere in the corner, whatever corner it's in. And I talked about how I wanted to try something new. I wanted to do something different with my channel. I wanted to try new things since I'm not able to do movie reviews. And one of the things I talked about was talking about sports. I'm a huge sports fan. I've been watching them for the last 3 to 4 years now. I really get into them, especially basketball, which I'll figure out a way to do that. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be doing something pretty interesting and different for my channel, and I'm going to be making the NFL wildcard predictions, meaning I'm going to take all the games that we have on the upcoming weekend slate and make my predictions, breaking down the games and who I think will win. This is not a definitive thing where this is like, oh, this is who's going to win. This is simply just my prediction of which team I think is the better team and who I think will come out on top of the game. This is knowing the NFL this season, especially, you never know what the fuck is going to happen. So I'm going to try out something different. And if it goes well, hopefully I'll be able to do this more. I don't know how this video will turn out, but if people like it, I'll probably do more of it. But if people don't seem to really get into it, then maybe I'll try and do something different. I don't know yet, but I'm going to try this out and see how it goes. And God, I almost lost my voice there. So, with that all out of the way, here are my predictions for the wild card this weekend. Also, side note, if you see me looking down a bunch, it's because of my notes. I can't remember all of this. So, kicking off the weekend tomorrow on Saturday noon, we got the LA Rams taking on the Carolina Panthers. I'm already sucking at this. Look at me go. So, before I make my predictions break down this game, let's talk about each individual seasons. Let's talk about the LA Rams, who have had a phenomenal season. Matthew Stafford, who has had an MVP like season, putting up, I believe, like 48 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, which is a absolutely fantastic stat, and he is up there in the MVP race, just right behind Drake May, and he's just had a phenomenal season, and it's absolutely unbelievable what he's been able to do, especially even before the season began and during the offseason. He was said to have a bad back, and I'm pretty sure someone even said that he broke his damn back, which back issues and all, Matthew Stafford has been having a phenomenal season. And during the offseason, they got rid of Cooper Kupp, which I thought was a huge loss. I absolutely loved Cooper Kupp in LA, and who moved on to be in Seattle, which I wonder how how Rams fans felt about that. But yeah, but then they got rid of Cooper Kupp, but then they brought in Devontae Adams, which I thought was a brilliant move. I really miss you, Devontae. And I thought that was an absolutely brilliant move, and he has been phenomenal on the Rams this year. He has put up 15 touchdowns for them, which is absolutely phenomenal. He's one of the first NFL players ever to have 15 touchdowns in a single season for 3 different NFL franchises, that being my Green Bay Packers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and now the LA Rams, which he's only been there for 1 year, and he's supposed to be going to be there next year. Cannot wait to see what he does there. And Puka Nakua, who is up there for offensive player of the year. He's having a phenomenal year. He is making catches that are absolutely unbelievable this year, especially the one where when they first played Carolina in week 13, I believe, and he made that sensational one-handed grab, and he's been doing that like it's absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, he would be making phenomenal plays that would get called back for holding calls or pass interference calls on him, which he would just make phenomenal catches all year. He is up, and I honestly think that he should win Offensive Player of the Year because the way he is playing is absolutely phenomenal. The defense from last year has even been playing better as well. I don't really believe in their secondary as much, but they have been playing well. And then we got to look at the Carolina Panthers, who honestly, I am shocked that they're even in this position today. They barely won their division. They went 8-9 and went 3-3 in their division, which is pretty impressive to even make the playoffs with that kind of stat, which kind of tells you how bad the NFC South is. But beyond the point, Carolina, I had a little bit of faith in them this year. I thought what I saw from Bryce Young and the Panthers at the end of last season, I thought, like, hey, if you do good in free agency, you draft some good players, maybe you can even make the playoffs next year. Well, we'll see. I didn't think they would make it after the first few games, but after a while, throughout the majority of the year, they looked like a pretty interesting team. They've been very inconsistent all year to where they've been able to be good teams, but then they lose to bad teams. Like earlier this year, they beat the LA Rams already, but then they get swept by the Saints, which is, I don't know how you. Excuse me, I don't even know how you let that happen. You even beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to take the lead in the division, and then once again the following week you lose against the Saints. Funny how that happens, and honestly, they have been an underdog all year, and I think they have shown that true underdogs can win games, and and it's been really fun to see what they've been doing. But looking at this game in particular, so let me look at my notes. Like I talked about, Matthew Stafford MVP season. I got his stats wrong. He had 4,707 passing yards with 246 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Damn. Like I talked about, he is having an amazing year. He's having an MVP like season. I honestly do think he should win MVP. I love May, what he's been doing this year, but I do think it should go to Matthew Stafford. He is more deserving of it, and this might be his last time to even get MVP because he only signed a 2-year deal in the offseason, and I believe next year might be his final year as a starter, but who knows what will end up happening. So I do think that Matthew Stafford should win MVP this year because this is probably going to be his last year. And the last few games, the Rams have been, well, they've been struggling a little bit, especially on offense. When you look at the Falcons game where Matthew Stafford threw 2 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and he had an ugly game. They nearly came back at the end of that game, but then they ended up losing it. And games like that, it's just like you can't have that going into playoffs because they were there at the 1 seed. They played the Seattle Seahawks. They were up 30-12, and then or was it even 30-12? I don't even remember what the score was, but then they fumbled it away. They lost in overtime. They no longer got the 1 seed, and that now belongs to the Seattle Seahawks. And it's just a shame that they lost that. And one of those reasons of why they kind of took that tumble was because of the loss of Davante Adams. Davante Adams, he has been out with a hamstring injury for the last few weeks, and you can definitely tell his presence being missed on that offense. Puka Nakua, though, he has definitely stepped up on that offense, and especially the tight ends and the running backs. They have definitely stepped up. Sean McVay, he was in that group with Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, all those guys that were a very run-heavy dynamic, especially with the quarterbacks and running backs they got to work with before they got head coaching jobs. Um, but yeah, you can definitely be tell that Adams' presence has been missed. But good news for the Rams is that he is back from his hamstring injury and he is fit to play Saturday against the Panthers. So that'll definitely be a huge addition to the to that roster. So I definitely think that's going to be a huge game changer to them. Like I talked about with the Rams secondary, their secondary I do have some questions about. I do think that they have sold them at some moments. They have made some plays that have been well, not game changing. They do end up getting stops, which is good, which is what you want from your secondary. But when you don't get these big plays like interceptions and all these other things, it will cost you games. And to me, from what I've seen from their secondary, they haven't really been getting many stops. And now people will probably say that Matthew Stafford will save them, putting up 4 touchdowns a game will save them, but that's not really usually the case. Look at his time in Detroit. So I do think that some points that maybe their secondary will cost them games. However, the part of their defense that will cost their games is their D line. I absolutely love Bryce Young. Is that I believe his name? Not Bryce Young, but I absolutely love Jared Verse and Young. Those two dynamics are great. I believe Young is in top 5 this year with leading sacks. Absolutely love their D line. I think that Jared Verse is an absolutely huge game wrecker. He has fit in perfectly with this defense ever since Aaron Donald retired. There will never be another Aaron Donald, but but I do think that Jared Verse was a nice little upgrade. But now, with that all out of the way, let's talk about Carolina. The Panthers, like I talked about, they've been a very inconsistent team all year to where I do think that's definitely going to cost them games. They'll lose against teams like the Saints, and they'll lose against teams like just pretty mediocre to bad teams, but then they'll be able to be good teams like the Packers, the Rams, and so on. And I do think that inconsistency will definitely catch up to you. However, they would have beaten the Buccaneers and would have easily won their division if it wasn't so for questionable ref calls and some penalties there, which when you look at them, it's very questionable and pretty bad. To where I think that the Panthers should have won that game pretty easily, but thanks to the Falcons, they won their division and they're going to be in the playoffs. And because of that, since they and when you win your division, you are an instant top four seed. So they got the number four seed, and they will be playing at home against the LA Rams, which might be an advantage. But because I believe the Panthers play the Rams in Week 13 at home as well, and we all saw what happened last time. And I do think they do hardly win their division because of that. But Bryce Young, he has been having a better year. I do think that this is the best he's been playing for his entire career in the NFL, because we all know what he looked like the last two seasons, which was, well, pretty disappointing. So, with all of that out of the way, I got to go with the LA Rams to win this game. I wouldn't be shocked if the Panthers somehow win this game, because they have been, well, like I've been talking about, they've been very inconsistent, and they have won some pretty shocking games, which games that a lot of people did not expect them to win, and a lot of games that they probably shouldn't have been competitive in. So I wouldn't even be shocked if the Panthers win, but it's kind of hard to pick against the LA Rams. I feel like the Rams are going to be pissed from last time when losing from them, especially getting Adams back on that offense. I do think that's going to be the big change in this game. So yeah, I got LA winning this one. And the game of the weekend on Prime Video on prime time. You got the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears. Why am I somehow scared of this game? It's the Bears. But beyond the point. But like I did with the LA Rams and the Carolina Panthers, let's talk about both this season. The Green Bay Packers, they were huge Super Bowl favorites this year after for the mega trade for Micah Parsons, which put them in the running for winning the Super Bowl. Jordan Love, I do believe that he is having his best season as a starter. He does make some questionable throws, and he does throw some bad interceptions, which I do think does come from Matt LaFleur's play calling. But overall, I think that the Packers were a huge Super Bowl favorites just because of the Micah Parsons trade. Those first few weeks, they looked really good. They looked like Super Bowl favorites, and towards the middle of the season, they were looking, well, mediocre. They tied against the Cowboys. They lost against the Panthers, and they lost Tucker Kraft in that game, who has been who for a while you could definitely see that he was wildly missed on that Packers offense. And then you lost to the Eagles in a very defensive battled game with Matt LaFleur and his stupid play calling. Then towards the end of the season, they started getting on a little ride. They won against the Giants, they won against the Lions, they won against the Vikings, and they went on a nice little 4-game winning streak there. And then they went against the Denver Broncos, and for a while there, they were winning that game. And then their season just collapsed. They lost Micah Parsons, and then they went against the Bears in Chicago the following week. Jordan Love goes out with a concussion. They fumble away the game in overtime, and then they lose against the Ravens, and letting the Derrick Henry and the offense just run all over their defense, which I don't know where our defense was that game. And then you lost against the Vikings in a pretty meaningless game after you locked in at the 7th seed, which is now the Packers' third straight year at locking in at the 7th seed, which I would say is pretty disappointing. But however, this might have been a pretty disappointing season, but you also got to think that a lot of injuries hurt this team. Half our D line is injured, half of our defense is injured. A lot of our offensive key players have been out recently. However, since we rested our starters in week 18, Zach Tom is listed as questionable to return for this game, who is our sensational offensive lineman, who was our best offensive lineman, and who Jordan Morgan is his backup, is terrible, and I really wish we didn't draft him. So yeah, I think with the addition of Zach Tom and our offense being completely healthy, and what I heard from our defense of Week 18, it sounded like there was some pretty interesting things there. You went and got Trevon Diggs off of waivers, and who Micah Parsons and him are pretty good friends, which I think is a pretty interesting addition to the secondary, which we do definitely do need the help at cornerback, because Keyshawn Nixon, well, you know what he did. But however, let's move on to the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, they hired the hottest head coach candidate with Ben Johnson, who was the offensive coordinator with the Lions last year, and he made that offense look sensational and unstoppable. And so obviously he was going to be a hot head coach hot head coach candidate, and then he goes and signs with the Chicago Bears after their loss in the divisional round against Washington last year. And then at the beginning of the year, it looked like they were going to be the same old Bears. They blew a lead against the Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy, and then they get absolutely blown out by by the Detroit Lions, by Ben Johnson's former team. But then after that, it seemed to go up. Their luck started to get better. The usually games where they would usually lose games in that fashion, they ended up winning games in that fashion. And I believe they have 7 games where they come back in the fourth quarter and win, which is most in NFL history, which is absolutely sensational and which is absolutely amazing, which is something I never thought I would say in my life. But however, Ben Johnson has definitely changed the course of the Chicago Bears. They've been unlucky for years. They've had terrible head coaches. They've had very mediocre QBs, and they've had some very unlucky games where they just have games just not go their way. Ben Johnson comes in, the course of the franchise absolutely changes, and you can definitely tell. Caleb Williams is having an amazing sophomore year after a pretty disappointing, pretty disappointing rookie year, which wasn't really his fault. He was just putting in a pretty bad situation. I don't know why anybody thought he was put in the best situation, but but overall, the Chicago Bears they've had an amazing year. They won the NFC North the first year under Ben Johnson. They locked in at the number 2 seed, which a non-biased way is a pretty damn good thing, and especially for a first year head coach. So I am absolutely um blown away for what the Chicago Bears have been able to do this year, and I just find it absolutely sensational. I am absolutely blown away for what Ben Johnson's been able to do in first year. So, a lot of the way, let's get to my notes. So, looking at the Green Bay Packers coming into this game, they are not on the hottest streak. They are on one of the coldest streaks. They have lost 4 straight games going into this game. They lost against the Broncos, which they lost Micah Parsons in, which you can definitely see the difference on that defense. They lost against the Chicago Bears with Jordan Love leaving with a concussion and special teams messing up and forcing an overtime, which they fumbled it away in overtime. And then they lost to Derrick Henry and the Ravens, which they ran right all over us, which was absolutely embarrassing. And then you lost in a pretty meaningless Week 18 game against the Minnesota Vikings. And like I talked about, that Parsons injury has definitely shown that it has been a very, 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 very different defense ever since his injury. We have not won a game since his injury, which I definitely shows the impact that he had on that defense, which thankfully it was not a very big torn ACL. He is set to return at the beginning of next year. He says that he's rehabbing hard and that he is healing faster than anyone could have, and any kind of injury like that, which is absolutely sensational. Jordan Love will be back from injury after missing 2 straight games with a concussion. He was cleared to go against Week 18, but we decided to rest him so he would be healthy enough for this game Saturday, which I do think is a very smart move. And with Jordan Love back, I do definitely think that adds a difference to this game, and I definitely do think that adds a difference to that offense. So you can say we have QB controversy with Malik Willis or Jordan Love, but I definitely do think with Jordan Love back, that is going to add a difference to that offense. His connection with Christian Watson and Jaden Reed has been amazing this year, especially at the run game with Josh Jacobs. I definitely think they can get something going. And if they finally decide to fucking utilize our first round pick with Matthew Golden, I definitely think this offense can definitely be rolling again under Jordan Love under center. And then you went and got Trevon Diggs and waivers, who, from what I heard, he looked pretty damn good and his few snaps that he had in Minnesota. I heard that he gave up like a 20-yard completion, but after that he didn't even give up a 4-yard completion, which is pretty damn good for a cornerback, which we definitely need with Keyshawn Nixon there. Keyshawn Nixon, he's made some good plays this year, but overall I do think that he does need to get that we do need quarterback help. So I think that the addition with Trevon Diggs is pretty good. And what I heard from Week 18 when we entered in rookies or I don't know backups. I heard that Bernard Sewell was the head of the game there, or so was um the hottest thing there because I heard that he looked better than Rashawn Gary, which is not really a high bar. Rashawn Gary has sucked all year. And I heard that he looked good, and I would not be surprised if we start him. And we start him, who knows what will happen. I think that our defense might be getting help at the right time. I don't think that'll be as good as it was at the beginning of the year with when we had Michael Parsons. But hey, who knows what will happen. But let's look at the Bears. The Bears, they're not on a hot streak either. They have lost two straight. They have lost to the Lions, and who else did they lose to? Sorry, had to do a little quick check. They lost to the 49ers and now the Lions, which means they've lost two straight games, which is not something ideally that you want going into the playoffs. Like the Packers, they've lost four straight. That's not something you want to have going into the playoffs. And I will say, and I'm not saying this out of bias or anything. I am being completely unbiased with saying this, so please don't think I'm just saying this because I hate the Bears. But however, their defense is mediocre. The only good thing that their defense is good at is creating turnovers. Other than that, they're not able to really rush the quarterback. They're not really be able to stop the run. They're not really be able to do anything besides turn the ball over. Which, sure, creating turnovers is good, but when that's all your defense is able to do, and if offenses are able to limit that you're not going to be able to keep up with other football teams. So I do think that's definitely something that you are going to want to fix before going into this game. I knew and I do have this down, but Caleb Williams has never actually beaten Jordan Love in a full game because the two games that Caleb Williams has beaten the Green Bay Packers in was against Malik Willis. We decided to arrest Jordan Love after he went down with a pretty sustainable hand injury in Week 18 last year, so we rested him and we almost beat the Bears, but then we lost by a last second field goal, which locked us in at the 7th seed. And then Jordan Love went down with a concussion against the Bears the last time we met them up, and then Malik Willis stepped in and they looked pretty good. They looked like we were about to win, but then special teams, well, they fucked up, and Caleb Williams and the Bears were able to win. So Caleb Williams has never actually realistically beaten Jordan Love in a full game. So we'll see what he'll be able to do this Saturday. And another thing for Caleb Williams is that this is his first playoff game in the NFL. So when you don't have that experience in the NFL and you're not used to these big time moments or whatever, I do think that will kind of, well, change the impact on this game with Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur having more experience in the playoffs and having more play and have more in playoff success than Caleb Williams and the Bears franchise. But however, maybe I probably shouldn't even say that because they do have seven fourth quarter comebacks. So maybe he is built for these moments, and I'm just a fucking idiot. But they also have a home game because they are the second seed and we are the seventh seed. So the Chicago Bears are at home, and so I do think that'll be an advantage. However, like I talked about, the Bears' defense is pretty mediocre, and the only thing that they're good at is creating turnovers. So I think if Jordan Love and the Packers are able to limit turnovers, and they are able to drive down the field and not create any turnovers, and stop the running game for the Bears, who Ben Johnson's made the running game look a lot better, especially with DeAndre Swift of all fucking running backs. I do think if Jordan Love and the Packers are able to limit turnovers, I have the Green Bay Packers winning this game. Again, I will not be shocked if the Bears win because, well, it's the Bears. They've won in bullshit ways this year. So yeah, I do think that the Packers have a pretty damn good shot of winning this game. But however, since the Bears are at home, I wouldn't deny that they win this game. Then kicking off on Sunday, we got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one's going to be a lot of fun, I think. So, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, he's coming off an MVP like season, and unfortunately, he's kind of having a little bit of a down year from last year, which maybe you can argue that he's having the same kind of season, but it's just not showing on the record. But hey, that's just me. That's just me. But however, Josh Allen, he's coming off an MVP like season from last year. He's not playing at that MVP level, I don't think this year, but he has been playing pretty. He has been playing like, well, Josh Allen. And at the beginning of the year, they looked hot. They came back against the Ravens at against 40, down 40-25 in the fourth quarter, and they ended up winning that game 41-40. One of the best games I've ever seen in my life, which you could say about a lot of games this season. And what is going on with my nose? Jesus. And their offense this year, I do think has been lacking because they've relied a lot on the run game with James Cook and Josh Allen, mainly because they don't have a lot of wide receiver help, which I'll get into. But I do think that the Buffalo Bills, well, it's Josh Allen the Bills. There's no denying that this team is always built for the wild card, and some greatness is destined to happen. Either because Josh Allen is really good in the wild card, usually does pretty decent in the divisional round, but then fumbles away in the AFC Championship game. Which I'm not trying to talk shit about Josh Allen. Oh my God, burp. Excuse me. I love Josh Allen. So yeah, they've had a pretty good year. I do think that their defense has been a little mediocre, and I don't think that they've been having as good as a season as they were last year, which they were predicted to win the 1 seed in the AFC, which that ended up actually going to the Denver Broncos this year. So if I'm looking at a realistic way, they went from the 2nd seed to the 6th seed this year, mainly because the New England Patriots won the division this year. So yeah, disappointing, I guess you could say. However, the one team that definitely did not have a disappointing year and had one of the greatest seasons this year is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and all because of the of one man, Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen, he had a weird situation before he became head coach. He was going to be one of the highest paid coordinators to stay in Tampa Bay, but then he signed there, and then he basically said, "Nah, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars to take the head coaching job." Which, okay, pick a side, dude. But he ended up signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they ended up having a sensational year. Went from they went from 13 losses last year to 13 wins this year, which is absolutely amazing. They won the AFC West, South. Are they the South? Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I believe they won the AFC South. I could be fucking wrong there. They won the AFC South, which the Colts were looking like they were going to run away with that, but then eh, they won the AFC South. Trevor Lawrence, he's having one of his absolutely best seasons. You went and drafted Travis Hunter at number two in the draft, who unfortunately went out with a season-ending injury. He is out for the rest of the year. Hopefully, he'll be back next year because when he was playing, he was a lot of fun to watch. But however, with Travis Hunter gone, you could definitely tell there were some things missing on that offense. So they went and traded for Jacoby Myers, who was having an amazing year. I think that he's having one of his best years ever. He signed a 4-year contract with them worth $43 million, which I think he absolutely deserves. Brian Thomas Jr., however, well, he's playing the opposite. He's not playing as good. However, the Jaguars are having one of the best seasons and one of the best turnarounds ever. I think that Liam Cohen has definitely changed the course of the Jaguars, and he's made Trevor Lawrence look like the player that everyone expected him to play as after when he came out of Clemson. So yeah, they are playing absolutely well. So that out of the way, let's talk about the game. So, my notes here, I do have the Bills' run game. The Bills' run game, I do think will be able to help them win this game. They have been very reliable on it all season with James Cook, who is the league's leading rusher this year. He's having an amazing year after signing a very big contract of the year, which he sat out majority of the offseason before he got it, and then he went on to lead the league in rushing, which James Cook is definitely helping Josh Allen. Speaking of Josh Allen, like I talked about, he's not having the same years he did last year, but he's still doing Josh Allen things and putting on that got Superman cape and winning them games in pretty fun fashion. So yeah, I don't doubt the Bills in any way. But the one thing that I will say there is that they are lacking at wide receivers. Keon Coleman, he doesn't really do anything, and there's not really any big names on this offense to really save them, except for their really good tight end this year, who's having a pretty damn good year with Dawson Knox. I think he's having an absolutely great year, and he's one of the best offensive weapons that they have right now. And I think that's really their only really good wide receiver option, if you ask me, because everything else, well, it's very lacking. However, their defense, their defense, they do play good at moments. I do think that they have a damn good secondary. They have been very good against the pass. They have been very good at getting stops. I do think that Joey Bosa was a great addition in this offseason. He's having a pretty good year, and I think this is one of the few years that he actually plays the full fucking season when he's not sitting out with injury. However, the one thing that they're not very good at is stopping the run. The one thing they've not been able to do this year is stop the run, whether it was Derrick Henry or Devon Achane. They've not been very good. They have made very mediocre running backs look very good. So I do definitely think that's going to be something that will cost you a game here. So be very mindful of that. Moving on from that, let's talk about the Jaguars. Like I talked about, Trevor Lawrence, he's having one of his all-time best seasons this year. I think that he's having a brilliant year. He's putting up numbers that in the second half of the year that are absolutely sensational. He is playing as if he deserves that big contract that he got about a year ago, which I was one of many people saying that he did not deserve a contract like that. But this year, he is proving that league wrong. He is playing absolutely sensational, and he is playing like he does deserve that contract. And they have one of the absolute best defenses this year, after being one of the worst defenses last year and letting teams like the Bills last year putting up 40 against you. But this year, That is not the case. They have been able to get stops, and they are good at creating turnovers, especially Lloyd, who has been absolutely great, who is up there with Defensive Player of the Year. And the one thing that they're very good at is stopping the run. They have not allowed a single 75 plus yard rusher. James Cook, he averages 75 yards a game. And if they are able to stop James Cook, it's going to be a very long day for the Buffalo Bills, if you ask me. And so, like I talked about with the Bills not being able to stop the run, Travis Etienne, he's also having a great year. He is looking like one of the best running backs in the league right now. I do think he'll be able to run all over that Bills defense, and I do think that that will end up saving the Jaguars offense this year. This Jaguars game this year. So I do definitely think that you should be looking out for Travis Etienne. So look out for that. And Brian Thomas Jr., like I talked about, he's having a pretty much of a down year, and he's not playing as good. But it's only a sophomore slump, so I do think that but when he's able to create plays, he's able to create plays. So be mindful of that as well. And like I talked about Liam Cohen, he's absolutely changed the bar. And the fact that I'm even sitting here and considering who is going to win, Josh Allen and the Bills or Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, that has told you how much that Liam Cohen has changed the course of this team. So, who do I think is going to win? This is an absolute coin flip to where I genuinely don't know. However, after looking at everything that I said and having everything that I just said written down here, I gotta go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game is at home for them. They locked in a top four seed, so it's gonna be at home for them. With the Bills being the sixth seed on the road, but at the same time, it's very hard to pick against Josh Allen in a wild card round. So I can't really see Josh Allen losing in the wild card round. But however, with the lack of wide receivers and a reliable run game with the Jacksonville Jaguars able to stop it, I think I gotta go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's very hard to decide this game, and I can see this game going either way. I can definitely see Josh Allen winning because it's a wild card game, and I can't really see him losing a wild card game. But all the signs are pointing to the Jacksonville Jaguars for me. And then this game should be, well, interesting. You got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, let's get the elephant out of the room with the 49ers. How the hell are they even in this situation right now? They are losing so many people this year. They are losing Brandon Ayuk. They are losing Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. They are missing Fred Warner. They lost a lot of key players in the offseason this year, especially on their defense. One of the biggest losses was Drake Greenlaw. And then even in the beginning of the year on the offense, you've been missing Ricky Pierce all half the year. Brock Purdy was out with turf toe, with Mac Jones, of all quarterbacks, coming in and basically saving the season for the 49ers, which is absolutely unbelievable that I'm even fucking saying that. And George Kittle, he was out for a few games with a hamstring at the very beginning of the year. So, yeah, what the 49ers have been able to do with all these injuries is absolutely phenomenal. And Kyle Shanahan, he has been coaching his ass off, and I honestly do believe that he should win Coach of the Year. Sure, you can be putting names up there with like Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, or Liam Cohen, like I talked about earlier, what he's been able to do with Jacksonville Jaguars. But I honestly think that it should go to Kyle Shanahan just because what he's been able to do with all these injuries and what he's been able to do throughout this whole season. It's been absolutely remarkable and absolutely unbelievable to where I genuinely do think it should go to Kyle Shanahan. But with all out of the way, and like I talked about, you lost a lot of key players in the offseason. You bring back Robert Saleh to be your defensive coordinator, which I don't think it's really his fault with the injuries, but their defense hasn't really been playing as good this year. But however, let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, they won the Super Bowl last year. They are on top. They felt like they are on top of the world. Felt like they could go back to back, and they are definitely built for it. But then losing Kellen Moore for him being the head coach in New Orleans, which was definitely a huge loss on that offense because Kevin Batullo has been doing a horrible job. Saquon Barkley, who had one of the greatest running back seasons I have ever seen in my life, he is having one of his worst career years this year. I think that he's not been able to produce much under that offensive line. And Jalen Hurts not being able to put up much on the field. AJ Brown not showing up much on the offense because they are not been utilizing him well. And they honestly can't even play a full game. Either they play the full game in the first half and then they just rely on their defense to make they rely on their defense to basically save them, or they don't show up in the first half and then they show out in the second half and they beat the game and beat the team somehow. They are finding ways to win, and I don't know how they're doing it. So but with that all the way, let's talk about it. Like I talked about the 49ers, it's been absolutely unbelievable what they've been able to do this year with all their injuries. It's absolutely remarkable and unbelievable. Like I talked about, Kyle Shanahan should be coach of the year. I do think that their offense at times can play really great, and there was even a stat out there to where they didn't punt for 2 straight games, which is shows you how well their fucking offense has been. And Brock Purdy, now I do believe that he is a system QB, but from what I've seen, he's been playing really damn good. He put up 2 5 touchdown games back to back, but then he went against the Seattle defense eh, and like I talked about, their defense is pretty weak. Their secondary is one of the weakest in the league right now. They have not been able to get much sacks ever since Nick Bosa went down with injury. I believe that they are tied for lowest sacks of the season, which is not good to say the least. So yeah, that is definitely something that you should be looking out for and be pretty nervous about, because if your defense isn't able to stop Philadelphia, who might be going in with a pretty good game plan, that's definitely going to cost you some games. And unfortunately, the run game this year, it has not been as explosive for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, I do think that he is in runner up for comeback player of the year, who basically carried the 49ers offense for the majority of the year. But however, it's just been not as explosive as you would expect it to be. Yes, it gets the job done, and it definitely looks pretty damn good at some moments. But however, when you look at it, it's just not as explosive as we're used to, which I do think is going to be an issue, especially with this Philadelphia defense. And Purdy, he struggled against the Seattle Seahawks defense, which is like the first or second best in the league. And if he struggled against the Seattle defense, I don't think he'll be able to put up much against the Philadelphia defense. And speaking of Philadelphia, their defense is absolutely one of the best in the league. Vic Fangio, he's an absolute great coordinator. Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, and then you got that one guy that got traded from Miami, who has been playing absolutely amazingly excuse me, ever since he got to Philadelphia. And I do, but and they definitely are. And the Philadelphia Eagles are at home for this game since they are the third seed, which I do think Nick Sirianni made the mistake of resting his starters in Week 18, because he would have been able to lock in the number 2 seed if he had played his starters. But then they went John Johnson, and then they went Johnson just beat the shit out of him, basically. So I do think that that was a huge mistake by Nick Sirianni. But however, they are still at home. And one thing that I do know about the Philadelphia Eagles, it is hard to beat the Philadelphia Eagles at home when they are in the playoffs. So I definitely think that's something to look out for. So looking at this, and honestly, since Brock Purdy really struggled against the Seattle defense, I had the Philadelphia Eagles winning this game. I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers ended up winning this game because of how well their offense is played. But however, just because how badly that offense looked against the Seattle defense, it's kind of hard to pick the 49ers in this situation, especially with Philadelphia being at home. So I got to choose Philadelphia. They're at home. Their defense has done enough to win them games, and they are the Super Bowl champs. And I would not be, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like last year where Philadelphia makes a huge run in the playoffs and they start playing even better in the playoffs than they did in the regular season. So I got Philadelphia winning this one. Then on Sunday Night Football, you got the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the New England Patriots. The Chargers this year, I picked them as one of my Super Bowl favorites after the way they had been playing the first few weeks of the season. They looked absolutely dominant, especially against against 3 divisional opponents with the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Broncos. And then after that, they kind of started to chargering it because injuries started to definitely decimate them. They lost 2 of their best offensive linemen this year, which has definitely shown. They lost their best offensive lineman before the season even began, which was already a huge loss. And then they lost their second best one towards the end of the season, which has definitely shown because their offensive line has not been able to protect Justin Herbert at all. They lost Amari and Hampton, which was which has been a very good rookie this year. He got injured early on in the season. He'd been out for a few weeks, but he has come back to the season and has been putting up has been playing better. He has been playing the way he had been playing at the beginning of the year. I'm stuttering. I've been talking for too long. Excuse me. But however, he is injured again, and he is listed as questionable for this Sunday night's game. So I do think that might be a big loss. And Justin Herbert, he has also broken his hand during the season, which I don't. It doesn't really look like it's affected him, but I do think that's something to look out for in the playoffs a little bit. And so yeah, but moving on to the New England Patriots because there's a lot more to talk about them. The New England Patriots, man, good God, they have had one of the best turnarounds in a long time because last year they went from 3 wins. They went from 3 wins under Jared Mayo to now 13 wins under Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, I honestly thought that was already a big acquisition in the offseason. I honestly thought that he was one of the biggest head coaching candidates there was out there after his time in Tennessee, which I honestly feel like he was wrongfully fired. I don't know why you fired him. It's not like you gave him one of the best rosters after after AJ Brown left and Ryan Tannehill was gone. It's not like you gave him a good quarterback in the first place, anyways. But the went and got Mike Vrabel as your head coach, which I thought was honestly a brilliant move. He was a former Patriot, so I honestly thought that him coming into the Patriots coaching staff was already a huge move because he's familiar with it, and I thought that was a big move. And then he brought back offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels, who after his whole head coaching candidacy, which he did not do very good, he came back and he's been letting Drake May having some phenomenal sophomore year and even a MVP like season. And you went and got Stephon Diggs in the offseason as well. Controversy aside, he has been putting up pretty good numbers, and he's had his I believe like his third consecutive 1,000-yard receiving year. Actually, no, that's a lie. I'm lying because he was with Houston, but he didn't stay there. Jesus Christ. But yeah, what the New England Patriots have done this year after what they were last year is absolutely phenomenal. Their turnaround has been great, and it's been a lot of fun to watch, which I didn't get to watch Tom Brady's dynasty, so maybe I get to see Drake May's dynasty. I don't know. But let's all out of the way. Let's get to notes. Sorry. So, like I talked about the Patriots, Mike Vrabel, he has definitely turned around this New England team. They have been playing absolutely amazingly. You could talk about the cupcake schedule all you want, but from what I've seen from Vrabel, he has been a phenomenal coach and he is a great leader for this team. You see him at press conferences, you see him on the field talking to his guys. That man is a leader, and that is everything that you want from a head coach. He is coaching the way that a coach should play. And then Drake May, he is having a phenomenal sophomore year, and he's even having an MVP like season, which I do still think it should go to Matthew Stafford, but Drake May is still having a great year. And I do think that the year that he's having as a sophomore is absolutely amazing. So definitely give kudos to him. And Trevon Henderson, who has been a phenomenal running back rookie, and I honestly think that he is in the running for winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I honestly do think that he should win it. It would have went to Emeka Egbuka, but he just decided to not show up for the last end of the season after Mike Evans and Chris Godwin got healthy. So I do think that Trevon Henderson is definitely in the running for that, and I do think that he should win because he makes some of the biggest plays that I've seen. He's able to find open gaps. He's able to find the end zone from 80 yards down. He's able to even receive the ball. He's just an amazing rookie and just an amazing running back, and he is just playing absolutely phenomenally. So I do think that he should win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the defense under Mike Vrabel has been playing a lot better than it did last year, which makes sense because Mike Vrabel was a defensive guy. So it makes sense that their defense is playing better. But like I talked about, you can't talk about the cupcake schedule that the Patriots have had. But honestly, since they were able to blow out those bad teams, that kind of does show that they can play against one of the more contending teams. They had a huge lead against the Buffalo Bills the second time around that they played them, but then they ended up blowing it because Josh Allen did Josh Allen things, which it's not really surprising if you blow a lead against Josh Allen because it's Josh Allen. Then they came back and won against the Baltimore Ravens without Lamar Jackson though, which I do think you look bad. But it was down by double digits, so I do think that's something to look out for. Like I said, you can talk about the cupcake schedule all you want, but what they've been able to do this year has been absolutely phenomenal. But moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers, like I talked about earlier, their offensive line is absolutely battered and absolutely beat up to where I do think that's going to cost them the game because Justin Herbert, I believe that he is like tied for third for most sacks this year, or maybe even more than that. Either he's tied for third or he's like top two. but he's been sacked a lot this year, and that is not something that you want to have with your quarterback, especially with your two best offensive linemen out. So I do definitely think that's going to be a huge factor in this game if the Patriots defense is able to get to them. But however, speaking of defenses, the defense under Jim Harbaugh and his second year coaching, this defense is playing just as good as it was last year, if not a small bit better. They've been playing absolutely amazingly. They've been able to create turnovers and get stops, and I honestly think that this is one of the best defenses in this league because I absolutely love what I'm seeing from the Chargers defense under Jim Harbaugh and Herbert in broken hand and all, he's still playing well, even though he is one of the most stacked quarterbacks in the league right now. From missing pieces on the offensive line, he's still able to get some stuff done. He got Keenan Allen back in the offseason, and he has Glad McConkey as well. So you got a lot of players on that offense that you could use this. And honestly, what the thing that is keeping me from choosing the Los Angeles Chargers from this game is that Herbert has never won a playoff game. He is 0-2. He has two passing touchdowns to 4 interceptions in his two playoff games. So I do definitely think that is something to worry about. And especially with his O-line being decimated and not being able to block for him, I honestly have the New England Patriots winning this game. It's also at home for the Patriots, and Mike Vrabel has a lot of experience in the playoffs with his time in Tennessee. So I do definitely think that the Chargers do definitely have a huge advantage. Not the Chargers, excuse me. The Patriots have a huge advantage here. So I got to go with the Patriots here. Again, you can talk about the cupcake schedule, but because of the Chargers all line, I do see the Patriots winning this game. Then, to cap off Wild Card Weekend on Monday Night Football, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers taking on the Houston Texans. The Steelers, holy fuck, you got lucky getting into the playoffs, which is typical Mike Tomlin fashion, right?
Do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
The Steelers, I have been high on them all season. I was even high on them in the offseason. You went and traded and got DK Metcalf and signed him to a huge 4-year deal, making him one of the highest players in NFL history, which I do think has definitely shown his production on this offense, who's been playing absolutely phenomenal. You went and also traded for Jalen Ramsey, which I do think was a little bit of a hit or miss type trade because he's able to create plays, but he also leaves some players wide open. But beyond the point, you also went in the draft and got a defensive tackle in the first round, which I do still think was kind of a mistake. I do think you should have added to that offense, but nonetheless. And then the biggest one of all of them, you went and signed Aaron Rodgers for a 1-year contract. Aaron Rodgers has definitely been the best quarterback they've had in a very long time. The Pittsburgh Steelers, it's been a lot of fun to watch them. Their offense has been really interesting to watch. Their defense, however, beyond the point. So let's move on to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, I did not even think they would be in this position. They started off the season 0-3. Their offensive line was terrible. The Houston Texans offense was not being able to do anything. Their defense was their defense was the only reason that kept them in games, but their offense was never able to capitalize. However, towards the end of the season, they got a little bit better. They shifted around some things on that offensive line, and they got a little bit, and they started playing better, and now they are the 5th seed in the AFC, which is absolutely remarkable, going from 0-3 to then to only go on to lose 2 more games and to win 12. That is absolutely remarkable and absolutely fantastic job by DeMeco Ryan and CJ Stroud. So that all out of the way, let's talk about this game. Like I talked about with the Texans defense, the Texans defense I do think is easily the best in the AFC and possibly even the best in the NFL. The defense is absolutely terrifying, and if I was an NFL player, I'd be a little bit nervous to go against this defense. However, they are missing a few key players in that secondary. Some of them went down with injury against the Los Angeles Chargers for them to lock in that 5th seed and to clinch the playoffs. So I do think that with some of those key players out of the secondary, I do definitely think that's going to be an issue. And CJ Stroud, he's been playing a lot better towards the end of the season, like I talked about, since he definitely got some offensive lineman help with them switching things around. So I do definitely think that's going to change. That's going to definitely have a different impact in this game. And the run game, they're able to get a lot going on that run game with Nick Chubb, and especially with Joe Mixon being out the entire year. I don't know what the hell happened to him. He's out with injury, but I don't know what the fuck it was. So The run game without Joe Mixon has been pretty good. You got Nick Chubb, and then you got a rookie in the draft that you got. I forget his name, but he's been playing good. But at the same time, their defense must be their defense is really good. But like I talked about, their offense can struggle at times, and I do think that's going to cost you a game here. So be mindful of that. Their offense can struggle. Because look at the Los Angeles Chargers game. CJ Stroud at the very beginning of the game, he went 4 for 4 on completions with 2 touchdowns. They took a 14-0 lead, and then they weren't able to really do much after that. So if you're going to start off games like that, you got to continue that way, because you can't start off a game like that and then end a game to where you're basically holding your breath and hoping for the best. So you got to fix some offensive struggles there. But moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, like I talked about with Aaron Rodgers has been having an amazing season. He's definitely been showing that he was not the issue in New York, but at the same time, New York is just a pretty bad organization. Where Aaron Rodgers, he's been playing absolutely amazingly. He's been playing like the Aaron Rodgers that we expected to see in New York. So I'm absolutely happy to see that Rodgers has been playing that. He's absolutely one of the funnest players I get to watch, and I do think he's the most gifted thrower there is in the NFL. And I'm not saying that out of bias because I'm a Packers fan. I do kind of miss him at some moments, but at the same time, I'm happy we got Jordan Love. But yeah, I think that Aaron Rodgers has been having one of his best seasons ever since he left Green Bay, and definitely getting DK Metcalf back on that offense is definitely a huge game changer. He got suspended for the last 2 games after the whole controversy in Detroit, and you can definitely tell his presence being missed, especially in that Cleveland game and especially in that Baltimore game, which they almost lost. So getting DK Metcalf back for this game is definitely a huge plus and definitely a huge addition to that offense, which I definitely will help them and definitely help them drive down the field against this Texans defense. And also, another thing is that Tomlin has never been defeated on Monday Night Football at home, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are at home. So I do think that there is a little bit of an advantage there. I do believe that this is Pittsburgh's first home playoff game in like 4 or 5 years, I believe. It's been a while since they've had a home playoff game, and especially on Monday Night Football. I do definitely think that's an advantage there. However, their defense, it's not playing how it should be playing. When you got T.J. Watt, Jalen Ramsey, Patrick Queen, and Hayward on that defense, you do think that they would be playing better, right? Well, not exactly, because at some points that they do really struggle, and it's really unfortunate, because I do think that their defense played better, and since their offense already plays really well enough with Aaron Rodgers under center, I do think that this team could be like a second seed, and I'm not even kidding about that. However, looking at this game, Aaron Rodgers has been playing really great. This is his first playoff game in a few years, and I'm knowing Rodgers is going to be very determined. Getting DK Metcalf back on that offense at home on a Monday night, I gotta go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, realistically, should I choose the Texans? Absolutely. CJ Stroud has not lost a wild card round ever since he came into the league, and I do think that maybe that defense will be able to stop that offense and Aaron Rodgers. But I got a feeling. I got a feeling that the Steelers will win. Would I be surprised if the Texans win? Absolutely not. But I'm gonna pick the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game, and hopefully we get to see Aaron Rodgers in one more playoff run. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Who do you have winning? Who do you have losing? What do you think will be the outcomes of these games? Maybe what do you think the final scores will be? Let me know down in the comments below, and we shall talk about it. But thank you all so much for watching my predictions on the wild card round. I will, and hopefully this video does well and see what I do. Thank you if you were here for the full hour I've been doing this. I did not mean to make this video this long, but hey, time happens. But let me know what you guys think about my prediction. What are your predictions for the wild card round? Let me know in the comments below, and we shall talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe with the bell notifications so you'll get notified for all my latest videos. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.